The crystalline spires of Haven City sparkled under the light of 3 moons, their surfaces reflecting the ethereal glow of the luminaries' bioluminescent architecture. Arya stood at her window, watching the graceful forms of her adoptive people glide through the evening air, their translucent wings catching the starlight. Today was her 25th birthday, and everything she knew about herself was about to change. Guardian Theron's footsteps were nearly silent as he entered her chamber, but Arya had grown up learning to detect the subtle vibrations that accompanied luminary movement. She turned to face her mentor, noting the unusual tension in his iridescent features. "It's time, isn't it?" Arya asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She had always known she was different, her solid form, her inability to photosynthesize, her quick aging compared to the luminary children she'd grown up with. But the truth had remained elusive until now. Theron's wings folded close to his body, a sign of respect and solemnity. "Yes, Arya. The Council has agreed that you must know your heritage. Please, follow me." They descended through the city's central tower, passing levels filled with gardens that sustained the luminary population. Each step took them deeper into the heart of Haven, to sections Arya had never been permitted to enter. The air grew thick with the scent of ancient vegetation and the peculiar sweetness of luminary technology. The archive chamber was a vast sphere suspended in the tower's core, its walls lined with crystalline memory matrices that contained the accumulated knowledge of countless civilizations. At its center stood a holographic projector unlike anything Arya had seen before. "What you're about to learn," Theron said, his voice gentle, "will be difficult to accept. But remember that regardless of your origins, you are cherished here." The projector hummed to life, and Arya gasped as images of Earth filled the chamber. She recognized it from her studies, the blue planet, third from its sun, cradle of human civilization. But these images showed a world in chaos, its atmosphere choked with debris, its oceans rising to swallow coastal cities. 26 years ago, Theron explained, humanity faced extinction. The Nexus Empire, believing your species too dangerous to join the galactic community, engineered a catastrophic climate collapse on Earth. They feared humanity's potential, your remarkable ability to adapt and innovate. Arya watched in horror as the history unfolded before her. Billions died in the initial catastrophe. The survivors, scattered and desperate, fought back with everything they had. But the Nexus Empire's technology was too advanced, their grip on the galaxy too absolute. "Your mother was part of a resistance group," Theron continued, his wings pulsing with emotion. "She came to us seeking sanctuary, knowing she carried the last hope of humanity within her. You were born here, Arya, the last known human child in existence." The images shifted to show a woman with Arya's dark hair and determined eyes, heavily pregnant and fleeing through a war-torn landscape. "What was her name?" Arya whispered. "Reyna. She named you Arya before she died, saying you would be the song of humanity's rebirth." Theron moved closer, his natural luminescence dimming with sadness. "We've protected you, taught you, prepared you for this moment. But we cannot keep you here against your will, now that you know the truth." Arya's mind raced with questions and possibilities. "Are you certain I'm the last? There must be other survivors, other colonies." The Nexus Empire was thorough in their extinction campaign. However, Theron hesitated, then continued, "There are rumors. Whispers of hidden human outposts in the unexplored regions of space. We've never been able to verify them." Arya squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of her heritage settle upon them. "Then that's what I need to do. I need to find them, if they exist. I need to understand why the Nexus Empire feared us so much, and I need to ensure humanity has a future." Theron's wings flared with pride and concern. "I knew you would say that. The Council has prepared for this possibility. We have a ship ready, small enough to avoid detection, but capable of interstellar travel. And I will accompany you, if you'll have me." "You would leave Haven?" Arya asked, surprised. The Luminari rarely ventured beyond their sanctuary worlds. You are as much my child as any Luminari, Theron replied. I will not abandon you to face the galaxy alone. As they stood in the archive chamber, surrounded by the history of her lost world, Arya felt a fierce determination take root in her heart. She was more than just the last human, she was humanity's hope, its future, its chance for survival. When do we leave? She asked. Theron's answer was interrupted by a distant alarm. The archive chamber's crystals pulsed with warning lights, and a guard burst through the entrance, wings spread in agitation. Guardian Theron. We've detected Nexus Empire vessels entering the system. They've broken through our stellar camouflage. Arya met Theron's glowing eyes, understanding passing between them. The choice had been made for them. Now, Theron said grimly. We leave now. The Starweaver was unlike any ship Arya had seen in Haven's hangars. Its hull shimmered with the same crystalline properties as Luminari architecture, but its design was distinctly more aggressive, clearly built for survival in hostile space. As she and Theron raced through the emergency launch protocols, the distant thunder of Nexus Empire weapons fire shook the city's defensive shields. The quantum drive needs 30 seconds to initialize, Theron called out, his wings flaring with concentrated light as he interfaced with the ship's systems. Haven's defenses will hold until then. Arya strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat, her hands flying over the control crystals she'd trained within simulations. Why now? How did they find us? The Nexus Empire has been searching for Haven for centuries, Theron explained as the ship's engines hummed to life. They've always known we harbored refugees from their purges. But finding a human here. His voice trailed off as he focused on the launch sequence. The hangar doors parted, revealing a sky filled with mechanical monstrosities. Nexus warships, black as deep space and bristling with weapons, descended through Haven's upper atmosphere. Their design spoke of ruthless efficiency, all sharp angles and exposed weapon ports, a stark contrast to the organic curves of Luminari vessels. Launching now. Theron's wings pulsed with effort as he guided the Starweaver through a gap in the enemy formation. The ship's crystalline structure responded to his bioluminescent commands, twisting and refracting light around them in a primitive cloaking effect. Arya's stomach lurched as they accelerated vertically, the ship's inertial dampeners struggling to compensate. Through the viewport, she watched her home disappear beneath them, the beautiful spires of Haven now obscured by waves of energy as the city's defenders fought back against the invasion. They'll be all right, Theron assured her, reading her concern. Haven has survived worse. The city can descend into the planet's core if necessary, hidden beneath kilometers of crust. A warning crystal pulsed red. 2 pursuit craft detected, Arya reported, reading the sensor data. Nexus interceptors, moving fast. The Starweaver shuddered as enemy fire grazed their shields. Theron banked hard, diving toward a massive debris field, the remains of ancient satellites that orbited Haven's world. Hold tight. This might get interesting. Arya gripped her restraints as Theron wove through the metallic graveyard. The Nexus interceptors followed, their superior engines quickly closing the gap. But their larger size made them less maneuverable, and Theron's intimate knowledge of Luminari technology gave him an edge. Quantum drive at 90%, Arya called out, watching the readouts. But we need a clear zone to activate it. Too much mass interference here. A bolt of energy caught their rear shields, dropping their protection to critical levels. Theron's wings flickered with concentration as he executed a series of impossible turns, using the debris as cover. There's something you should know, he said, surprisingly calm despite their situation. Your mother, she left coordinates. What? Arya turned to stare at him. You told me she died before sharing any information. She did. But we found a quantum-locked data crystal fused into her ship's hull. We've never been able to decrypt it, but it's in the Starweaver's computer core. I believe it requires human DNA authentication. Another blast rocked the ship. One of the interceptors had anticipated their course and cut across their path, weapons charging for a killing blow. Theron yanked the controls, sending them into a spiral that brought them dangerously close to a massive piece of debris. "Quantum drive ready," Arya shouted. "Not yet," Theron's voice was tight with concentration. "Watch." He fired the Starweaver's engines at full power directly at the debris chunk, using their momentum to swing around it like a sling. The maneuver put the debris between them and their pursuers just as the interceptors fired. The energy weapons struck the ancient satellite instead, detonating it in a spectacular explosion that scattered the pursuing ships. Now! Theron activated the quantum drive as they emerged from the debris field. Space twisted around them, stars stretching into lines of light as they made their escape. The Nexus interceptors vanished behind them, lost in normal space. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, Arya processed what Theron had told her. "My mother's coordinates, you think they might lead to other humans?" "It's possible." Reyna was part of something called Project Legacy, a contingency plan in case the Nexus Empire succeeded in their genocide. But accessing that data crystal will be dangerous. The Empire has placed bounties on any functioning human technology, especially anything related to Project Legacy. Arya stood and moved to the ship's computer core, where a small, dark crystal sat in a specialized reader. "Then we'll need help. Someone who can protect us while we work on decryption." She placed her hand on the crystal, feeling a slight warmth beneath her fingers. "Any suggestions?" Theron's wings dimmed thoughtfully. "There's a trading post on the edge of Nexus space, a place called Horizon's Edge. It's run by the Syndicate, criminals and outcasts who hate the Empire as much as we do. We might find allies there, or at least information." "And enemies," Arya added, thinking of the bounties Theron mentioned. "Everyone at Horizon's Edge is an enemy to someone," Theron agreed. "But it's our best chance at finding the equipment and contacts we need. The Syndicate deals in secrets, and there's no bigger secret than a surviving human." Arya returned to her seat, watching the quantum space distortions swirl outside the ship. "How long until we reach it?" 3 days, assuming we don't run into any Imperial patrols." Theron adjusted their course slightly. "Use the time to rest. Once we reach Horizon's Edge, we'll need to be at our best. The station's motto is, 'Trust no one,' and they take it very seriously." Arya nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. Somewhere in that data crystal were her mother's last instructions, perhaps the key to finding more human survivors. But first, they had to survive the criminals and opportunists of Horizon's Edge, and stay one step ahead of the Nexus Empire's hunters. As if reading her thoughts, Theron added softly, "Your mother was the bravest person I've ever met. She faced impossible odds to give you a chance at life. Whatever we find at Horizon's Edge, whatever secrets that crystal holds, know that you carry her strength within you." Arya touched the crystal again, imagining her mother's final acts of defiance against an empire that had tried to erase humanity from existence. Then let's make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Horizon's Edge emerged from the darkness of space like a twisted metal flower, its petals formed from salvaged starship hulls and ancient space station components. Hundreds of vessels of various sizes and origins swarmed around it, creating a chaotic dance of commerce and survival. The Starweaver approached cautiously, its crystalline hull dimmed to avoid drawing attention. "Remember," Theron said as they waited for docking clearance, "your identity here is crucial. You're registered as Ren, a hybrid from the Outer Rim. The radiation scarring story will explain any biological differences they detect." Arya adjusted the hooded cloak she wore, ensuring it covered her distinctly human features. "And you're my guardian, hired by my wealthy family to keep me safe during my trading expedition." "Correct. The fewer questions we answer, the better." Theron's wings were carefully concealed beneath specialized armor, making him appear more like a mercenary than a Luminary guardian. Our contact is a data broker called Vex. If anyone can help us decrypt the crystal without alerting the Empire, it's them. The docking process was surprisingly smooth, though Arya noticed multiple weapons trained on their ship throughout the approach. Horizon's Edge might welcome all visitors, but it trusted none of them. As they stepped out of the Star Weaver, the station's recycled air hit Arya's nostrils, a mix of metal, ozone, and too many species living in too small a space. They made their way through crowded corridors, passing members of dozens of different species. Some Arya recognized from her studies, others were completely alien to her. Many wore obvious weapons, while others moved with the subtle grace that suggested hidden ones. Vex's establishment was located in a quieter section of the station, its entrance marked by a holographic sign displaying constantly shifting code. A robotic guard stopped them at the door, its sensors scanning them thoroughly. "Weapons detected," it announced in a monotone voice. "Standard station rules apply. All lethal devices must be powered down. Payment is required in advance. No refunds for terminated clients." Inside, the space was surprisingly elegant, with clean lines and sophisticated data terminals lining the walls. Vex themselves turned out to be a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid-shaped field of quantum particles. Their voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The Luminari rarely venture so far from their gardens," Vex observed, their form flickering with interest. "And your companion, how fascinating. Your genetic pattern is unusual." "We're here for your encryption services," Theron stated firmly, placing the data crystal on a nearby terminal. "We understand you're the best." "Flattery has no effect on beings of pure energy," Vex responded, though their form brightened slightly. "But yes, I am the best. However, this crystal." Their energy field extended toward the device, analyzing it. "This is human technology. Highly illegal. The bounty for turning you in would set me up for several lifetimes." Arya tensed, but Vex continued, "Fortunately for you, I find the Empire's genocide of humanity distasteful. Their obsession with controlling evolution itself goes against the natural flow of data. And you, my dear, are a fascinating anomaly in that data stream." "You know what I am," Arya stated. It wasn't a question. "I know everything that passes through my station. Including the recent attack on Haven. The Empire grows bold, hunting so deep in Luminary space." Vex's form swirled thoughtfully. "I propose a trade. I will decrypt your crystal and provide you sanctuary while I work. In exchange, you will grant me access to its contents." Before they could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Vex's form pulsed with urgent patterns. Imperial warships just emerged from quantum space. They're demanding access to the station. They followed us, Arya realized with horror. "Impossible," Theron countered. "Our quantum wake was perfectly masked." "No," Vex's voice had dropped to a whisper. "You were betrayed. Someone on this station reported your arrival the moment you docked. The Empire's response time is impressive, and concerning." Arya's mind raced. How long to decrypt the crystal? "Hours, at least. Time you don't have. Unless." Vex paused, their energy field condensing with concentration. "There is another way. The station's central data core contains quantum computers powerful enough to crack this encryption in minutes. But accessing it would be problematic." "Why?" Theron demanded. "Because the core is controlled by the Syndicate's inner circle. They're likely the ones who betrayed you to the Empire. Breaking in would be suicide, for most beings." Vex turned to Arya. "But you're human. And humans were always remarkably good at achieving the impossible." Through the walls, they could hear the sound of Imperial troops boarding the station. Arya squared her shoulders, years of training with the Luminari settling into a calm focus. Tell me what I need to do. What followed was a desperate race against time. While Theron created a diversion by making it appear they were trying to reach their ship, Arya followed Vex's guidance through the station's maintenance tunnels. Her smaller size compared to most species proved advantageous as she squeezed through access panels and repair shafts. The data core was a massive chamber filled with towers of quantum processors, each one powerful enough to run a small city. Arya had to use all her agility and training to avoid the security systems, many of which were specifically calibrated to detect non-syndicate life forms. The defense grid is tied into the station's main power, Vex's voice came through a small communicator. But there's a maintenance override in the central console. Human technology was partially used in its construction. Your DNA might. An explosion rocked the station, cutting off Vex's transmission. Imperial forces were getting closer. Arya could hear weapons fire and shouting from the levels above. Taking a deep breath, she pressed her hand against the console's biosensor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the entire system lit up with a soft blue glow. Words appeared on the screen, human user detected. Project Legacy protocols activated. That's impossible, Arya whispered. The console wasn't just responding to her DNA, it was specifically designed for it. Which meant another explosion, closer this time. No time to wonder about the implications. Arya quickly connected the data crystal to the console, watching as decades-old encryption began to unravel. As the files decoded, her mother's face appeared on the screen. If you're seeing this, Reyna's recorded image said, then you've survived, my daughter. And you're ready to learn the truth about Project Legacy, and why humanity frightened the Empire enough to warrant our extinction. The data flowed into Arya's communicator just as the chamber's doors began to buckle under Imperial weapons fire. She had moments to escape, but now she knew, her mother hadn't just been running from the Empire. She'd been protecting something far more important than one human child. She was protecting humanity's greatest secret, and their last hope for survival. The Starweaver burst from Horizon's Edge's emergency launch tubes, crystalline hull vibrating under the strain. Behind them, Imperial warships opened fire, their energy weapons cutting through the space where they'd been moments before. Arya's hands flew over the controls, implementing evasive maneuvers while Theron worked to get the quantum drive online. Did you get it? Theron asked, his wings pulsing with strain as he channeled energy to their shields. Was it worth almost getting us killed? Arya nodded, still processing what she'd discovered in the data core. My mother, she wasn't just a resistance fighter. She was Project Legacy's chief scientist. And what they were working on. She swallowed hard. It's why the Empire really tried to destroy us. A direct hit rocked the ship. Tell me later, Theron advised. Right now, we need to. Wait. Arya pulled up the decoded files on her console. There's a set of coordinates. An old terraforming facility in the scarred sectors. Mom's message says it's important. The scarred sectors were an area of space so damaged by ancient wars that most ships avoided it entirely. The region was filled with quantum storms, gravitational anomalies, and worse. But as another Imperial blast nearly breached their shields, Arya realized it might be their only option. The sectors it is, Theron agreed grimly. Hold on. The quantum drive engaged just as an Imperial tractor beam tried to lock on, hurling them into the safety of faster-than-light travel. But they weren't alone. Two Imperial pursuers managed to follow their quantum wake, determined not to let the last human escape again. Mom's files mention a facility called Genesis Point, Arya explained as they traveled. It wasn't just for terraforming. It was humanity's failsafe, a place where we stored our most advanced technology, including. She hesitated, still barely believing it herself. including genetic samples from Earth's population. Enough to potentially restore humanity. Theron's wings flared with surprise. That's impossible. The Empire destroyed all such facilities during the Purge. Not this one. Because it wasn't just built by humans. Arya pulled up more files. It was a joint project between humans and the Precursors. Even Theron fell silent at that. The Precursors were a legendary species that had vanished eons ago, leaving behind technology so advanced it seemed like magic. The Empire had spent centuries trying to unlock their secrets. That's why the Empire feared us, Arya continued. Humans were the only species capable of interfacing with precursor tech. Something in our neural patterns made us compatible. The Empire didn't want to risk us becoming too powerful. A warning alarm interrupted them. They were approaching the scarred sectors. The Starweaver dropped out of quantum space into a region that defied description. Space itself seemed wounded here, with visible tears in reality leaking strange energies. Debris from ancient battles drifted everywhere, some pieces larger than entire space stations. The facility's coordinates lead to the heart of this? Theron asked, maneuvering carefully through the chaos. Your mother must have been sure no one would follow. Their pursuers emerged behind them, immediately opening fire. But in the scarred sectors, such attacks were the least of their concerns. A quantum storm materialized between the ships, its swirling energies powerful enough to tear apart anything caught within. There. Arya spotted something through the madness, a structure that didn't match the surrounding debris. It was massive, easily the size of Haven, but designed to blend in with the devastation around it. As they drew closer, she could make out details that marked it as both human and something far more advanced. The Imperial ships were forced to break off their attack as another quantum storm approached, but the Starweaver's crystalline hull seemed to resonate with the facility's defenses. A hangar door opened, offering them sanctuary. Inside, emergency lights activated automatically, revealing a space that had waited decades for their arrival. As they docked, Arya's communicator connected to the facility systems, responding to her human DNA just as the console on Horizon's Edge had. Welcome to Genesis Point, her mother's recorded voice echoed through the facility. If you're receiving this, then the worst has happened. Humanity has fallen. But we prepared for this possibility. Arya and Theron stepped out of the Starweaver into a vast chamber filled with technology beyond anything they'd seen before. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing precious genetic samples preserved by precursor stasis fields. But it was the central chamber that drew their attention. There, suspended in a column of energy, was a piece of technology that seemed to defy reality itself. It pulsed with patterns that reminded Arya of DNA helixes, but far more complex. This is the Genesis engine, Reyna's recording continued. A merger of human ingenuity and precursor wisdom. With it, we can restore not just our people, but our world. The Empire destroyed Earth, but they don't know that Earth was not humanity's first home. The Precursors brought our ancestors to Earth millions of years ago, and they left us the tools to find our way back. The recording paused as the facility systems finished their startup sequence. Deep within Genesis Point, ancient machinery hummed to life, responding to the presence of a human after so many years of waiting. But be warned, Reyna's voice grew urgent. The engine isn't just a tool for restoration. In the wrong hands, it could be used to rewrite the genetic code of entire species. The Empire would use it to ensure their dominance forever. That's why we hid it here, protected by the quantum storms they fear to navigate. Arya approached the Genesis engine, feeling it respond to her presence. So this is my mother's real legacy. Not just saving me, but giving humanity a chance to rebuild. And now the Empire knows we found it, Theron added, checking the facility's sensors. Those ships will return with reinforcements. They'll find a way through the storms. Let them come. Aria's voice was firm as she interfaced with the facility's systems. Humanity lost Earth because we were caught by surprise. This time, we'll be ready. She turned to Theron, her expression determined. Help me power up these defenses. It's time humanity stopped running and started fighting back. As they worked to bring the ancient facility online, Aria felt a connection to every human who had worked here, who had believed in humanity's future enough to create this sanctuary. The Empire had tried to write humanity's final chapter, but they'd failed to understand something fundamental about the species they'd tried to destroy. Humans never accepted an ending they didn't write themselves. The Imperial fleet materialized at the edge of the scarred sectors like a swarm of mechanical locusts, their black holes absorbing what little light reached this wounded region of space. Aboard Genesis Point, Aria watched their approach on the facility's advanced sensor systems, her heart steady despite the overwhelming odds. They brought enough firepower to destroy a small star system, Theron observed, his wings glowing with concern. In the week since they'd arrived, he'd helped her prepare the facility's defenses, but even he wasn't sure it would be enough. Good thing we're not planning to fight them conventionally, Aria replied, her fingers dancing over the precursor controls that responded so naturally to her touch. Around them, Genesis Point hummed with power as ancient systems fully awakened. Status of the engine? A holographic display showed the Genesis engine's core pulsing with increasing intensity. The device wasn't just a tool for restoration, it was a key to understanding the fundamental forces that shaped life itself. And now, thanks to her mother's research, Aria knew how to use it. Energy patterns are stable, Theron reported. But Aria, if we do this, there's no going back. The Empire will never stop hunting us. They never stopped hunting us anyway. Aria moved to the facility's central chamber, where the Genesis engine's light bathed everything in a soft blue glow. What we do here today isn't just about survival. It's about giving humanity a real future. The first wave of Imperial ships probed the quantum storms surrounding Genesis Point, testing for weaknesses. But Aria had spent days studying the facility's records, learning how the storms were actually part of its defense system, created by the precursors to protect their legacy. They're deploying quantum stabilizers, Theron warned. Crude, but effective. They'll breach the outer perimeter in 10 minutes. Aria nodded and activated the facility's communication system. This is Genesis Point to Imperial Fleet. I know you can hear me. I know why you're here. But before you commit to this attack, there's something you should understand about humanity. On the screens, she could see the Imperial ships pause their advance. A response came, filled with the cold authority she'd expected. This is Admiral Venn of the Imperial Extermination Fleet. Surrender the facility and submit to termination. This is your only warning. You tried to destroy humanity because you feared what we might become, Aria continued, ignoring the threat. You saw our potential to interface with precursor technology as a threat to your dominion. But you never understood why the precursors chose us. She pressed her hand against the Genesis engine's main console, feeling its energy surge through her. Throughout the facility, long-dormant systems awakened, responding to her human DNA in ways the Empire's best scientists had never managed to replicate. The precursors didn't choose humans because we were powerful, she explained, watching as the Imperial ships resumed their approach. They chose us because we understand something you never will. The true purpose of evolution isn't dominance. It's adaptation. Growth. Change. The Genesis engine pulsed, sending waves of energy through the quantum storms. But instead of clearing a path for the Imperial fleet, the storms began to change, their patterns becoming more complex, more directed. Impossible, Admiral Venn's voice had lost some of its confidence. Our sensors indicate you're manipulating the quantum field itself. The Genesis engine isn't a weapon, Aria declared as the storms responded to her commands, herding the Imperial ships like a shepherd guiding a flock. It's a tool of creation. The precursors left it to us because they saw in humanity something familiar, a species that could learn, adapt, and grow beyond its origins. Through the facility's windows, the quantum storms had become a spectacular light show, their energies no longer chaotic but moving with purpose. Imperial ships found themselves pushed back, their quantum stabilizers useless against forces they couldn't comprehend. "Last chance, Admiral," Arya offered. "Withdraw your fleet. End this persecution. Let humanity rebuild, not as a threat to your empire, but as proof that evolution cannot be controlled or suppressed." The response was predictable, a full assault against Genesis Point's position. But they were firing at shadows. The quantum storms had become an extension of the facility's defense system, redirecting energy weapons and absorbing torpedo impacts harmlessly. "Their weapons can't penetrate the quantum field," Theron reported with amazement. "The storms are learning. Adapting to each attack. Just like humanity always has," Arya smiled. With another command, she activated the Genesis engine's primary function. Throughout the facility, stasis pods hummed to life, beginning the careful process of reviving stored genetic samples. But more importantly, the engine began broadcasting a signal, a message hidden in quantum frequencies that only human DNA could detect. "What are you doing?" Admiral Venn demanded as his fleet's attacks continued to prove futile. "Calling out to any humans who might have survived your purge," Arya answered. "The signal will reach across the galaxy, detectable by anyone with human DNA. It will lead them here, to a place where they can be safe. Where they can rebuild." "You would risk everything?" The Admiral's voice held genuine confusion. "Your species was nearly extinct. You could hide, live out your life in peace. Why challenge us?" Arya watched as the first stasis pod completed its cycle, its contents ready to contribute to humanity's rebirth. "Because that's what humans do, Admiral. We don't just survive, we thrive. We adapt. We grow. And most importantly, we never give up." The Imperial fleet finally began to retreat, their weapons expended uselessly against the quantum storms. But Arya knew this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. The Empire would return, probably with even more forces. But by then, humanity would be stronger. "Ready. The signal is broadcasting clearly," Theron reported. "If there are any human survivors out there, they'll find their way here." Arya nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was no longer just the last human, she was the guardian of humanity's future. With the Genesis engine, the knowledge left by the precursors, and the determination that had helped her species survive extinction, she would ensure that humanity had its second chance. "Mom," she whispered, touching the console where her mother's research had made all this possible, "I hope I made you proud." As if in response, another signal appeared on their sensors, a small ship, approaching through the quantum storms. Unlike the Imperial vessels, it navigated the chaos with ease, as if drawn by an invisible beacon. More importantly, its life signs were unmistakably human. Arya smiled. The future was arriving sooner than expected. Humanity's next chapter was about to begin.